What's up, Canes fans? Happy Victory Monday. This is the CanesInSight Daily Podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Canes take care of business against FAMU, 56-9. I was closest on my prediction. I was at 55-10. I was the closest one. So ignore all the picks I missed in the college football pick'em. That one was on point. But we got a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting performances. A lot of guys played, got eyes on a lot of players we've been talking about in theory. Now I get to see the player and break down. So we'll go through position by position, basically cover everything that happened in the FAMU game before we move on to some action here later in the week with Ball State. First, I want to talk about some friends that you always know what you're going to get. They're not unproven. They're as proven as it gets, and that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-3733, 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. All right, hopping in from Florence, Italy. Pete, jump in here. Look at that.
Good afternoon here from Florence. It's 4:30 in the afternoon here. I know it's morning back there in Miami, but excited to be able to hop back on here and hopefully be on here for most of the week with you.
Yeah, no, that's the work ethic. Peter Ariz in the nice European classy vacation. He's hopping in to talk about an FCS win, and shout out to the newlyweds out there. I heard it. there were some hijinks with hotel rooms, and you were out there locked out of your room.
A lot of stuff on this on this trip. It's moving around with a lot of bags and things of that nature aren't always the most efficient and smooth, but we keep moving.
And you were able to see the FAMU game, so I know you got thoughts. I got thoughts. Big picture, obviously 56-9. Miami covered. The spread came out real late. I think it was like 45 points or something like that. Miami was able to cover with the 47-point win. No injuries. Cover, no injuries. Nothing weird. That's what you want to see overall. There's some things you like, some things you didn't like. But let's start with what you thought, went right here, Pete.
Well, obviously, again, Cam Ward keeping things, flowing offensively. I think we saw at times over the past 3-4 years at Miami D, there would be really nice performances from the quarterback position, right? And then it didn't have to be the biggest game, but next week out, but there would just be inconsistencies following a good week. I think you saw with Cam Ward, obviously 20 of 26, those 3 touchdown passes, had that nice Sports Center top 10 run as well, but just keeping the good vibes going there offensively. He said that they have not opened up the playbook, right? We say that normally in the early part of the season, D, because the offense doesn't look very good. So it is exciting. They have done well offensively, and he says there's still more to come. So hopefully, it normally is covering some stuff up, and we get hopeful for that. But I think that's, to me, number one and most important thing.
Yeah, you took the wind out of my sails. I was going to talk about not opening the playbook, really in the context of red zone offense. I thought the red zone offense got a little bogged down, especially in the second quarter. Miami had some opportunities to score where they weren't able to execute with the base offense. I think as you get into the bigger games, you will see more scripted plays in the red zone. Elijah Lofton is going to be a major difference maker, I think, in that area. And just in general, you're going to see some more of Dawson going into his bag. Cam Ward said himself, we had not even gotten to our bag yet on offense. I think red zone, you're going to really see that take place. You still like to see better execution in the red zone, just crisper play. You had a miscommunication early in the game in terms of Matthew McCoy and Markel Bell. They allowed Cam Ward to get sacked. I thought Cam Ward in general took probably too many hits. Some of that was his own doing. But overall, I thought it was a nice, clean performance. And just jumping in position by position. We'll start with quarterback Cam Ward. I love the reps where he was staying in the pocket and delivering from there, because of course we know him. Everybody saw the play last week against Florida where he rolled left, threw against his body, and hit Jacobe George in stride in the back of the end zone. But I like when he stays in the pocket and shows how accurate he is at that level. You saw the pass to Xavier Restrepo against Florida. Saw another couple passes to Xavier Restrepo in the pocket today. Beautiful pass to Elijah Arroyo. Perfect placement. Again, FCS opponent, but I like his ability to stay on the script when he needs to and not, have to show everything. I thought a couple times we talked about he did extend a little too much I know there was one play downfield to Horton, which was an absolutely beautiful pass, but he took a really hard hit, harder than I want to see in an FCS game like this. So you love that he can do it, but you hope that he can kind of dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and look, he's still making those highlight plays, which I think it's no surprise. He's in most national writers now, top 2 or 3 in the Heisman discussion, right? And I think those sort of plays add to the flair of it, right? So although we don't want to see him taking those hits, it's nice to know he has it, available when he needs it.
Yeah, and just looking at the box score here, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11.7 yards per attempt, 20 for 26. He had a couple drops. I mean, hard to be better than he was throwing the football again, given the opponent, but you can only do what you can do against the opponent you have. Also saw Reese Poffenbarger play. I thought you saw some good and bad. On the bad side, the ball slipping out of his hands. You would like a little more grip strength. I think both Reese Poffenbarger and Cam Ward on the smaller side when it comes to hand size. You saw that with Poffenbarger losing the ball. He just didn't look big like you want to see it. I know he's not big, but he looked small against an FCS opponent. That's a little bit of a concern, but you did see the athleticism with the spin move and some of the plays getting outside the pocket.
Yeah. Now moving on to the running back position, D, we saw Chris Johnson. He scored last year against Bethune-Cookman, got in the end zone through the air near the goal line there. And then Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher continue to be a really nice 1-2 punch potentially as the season goes on. I got to tell you, man, Mark Fletcher, really liking what I'm seeing early in the season from him, building on last year. Didn't know, how he was going to look, if he was going to have any rust coming off of that foot injury, but he has hit the ground running in a major way.
Yeah, I think you texted me, which I agreed with, that Fletcher's showing more juice than maybe we expected, just from an explosiveness standpoint, especially coming off the injury. I think he looks even more explosive than he did last year. On that long run he had in this game, really just, pure explosion through the hole. And of course, the size. We haven't even seen what this, I think what you're trying to set up with this offense or with this running game is Martinez in the first, Fletcher in the second and third, and then Martinez closing teams out and just pounding teams in the fourth quarter when they're tired of tackling 235-pound backs. We haven't really even seen that because it's just the games have been blowouts, thankfully. I think in some of these closer games, the goal is to really pull away there in the fourth quarter with Martinez beating up a tired defense and Fletcher's doing his part, but he looks explosive. You did see Martinez show some pull away speed on his long touchdown. I did see some of that in camp where he has a little more long speed than you would expect, and hopefully that shows as we get here closer to ACC play. But running back wise, again, more of the same that you saw last week. Jordan Lyle, first man up, his pass protection made a big difference. I thought his patience and his balance, really impressive as a guy that you can count on as both a running back of the future and a running back of right now.
Yeah, him and Justin Scott, who we'll get to in a little bit, took the podium, post game there. It's nice to see the young guys get a taste of that. And I agree with you. You've been talking about Jordan Lyle since he arrived, in May, D, because he was not a guy who came in spring, which makes this all that much more impressive what he's doing. But you could just see his contact balance as you referenced, and the ability to explode out of these cuts for his size as well. He's just a tough guy to bring down as a defender.
Yeah, it's someone clearly the team trusts pass blocking. I think with Chris Johnson, you're seeing different than Jordan Lyle. I feel they view Jordan Lyle as someone that if, God forbid, Martinez or Fletcher goes down, he just steps right into that role and he's your other back. You don't have to be special with him. You don't have to have a package for him. He's just the next running back in line who can block, who can run with power, who can make big plays, who can catch. Johnson, I think you mentioned the touchdown last year against Bethune. That was just running the ball with the backups. I thought what was interesting about his touchdown this week is that it really was with the first team towards the beginning of the game where it was still a game. So, and it was, they were getting the ball in his hands, passing him the ball. I think you will see Johnson more with the first team as a specialist where there's plays specifically designed for him and his speed, as opposed to being a running back in the rotation. I think he needs to get stronger. He needs to get just a little more fundamentally sound. He's behind Jordan Lyle and Fletcher just as a pure back, which makes sense. Those, Jordan Lyle and Fletcher have been good for a long time. Chris Johnson, more of a late bloomer with his speed. which is not uncommon for fast backs. We talked about Chris Johnson, CJ2K from the Titans, and now he didn't really burst onto the scene as a runner until his senior year at East Carolina. So I think Johnson is progressing at the right rate. You'd like to see him stay engaged so he doesn't transfer. Not that I've heard any rumors about that, but that's just, the transfer portal. You're always thinking about things like that. And having him impact the team as a kick returner, where he had a nice kick return, Cristobal got real excited about, and then also in his special packages. I think that's a good balance of keeping him engaged with the game, real snaps, the game in doubt, not just garbage time, but at the same time, not putting him in a position to blow a pass block and get Cam Ward hurt or just not run the ball effectively. So I think that was a good balance. You saw A.J. Allen run hard there at the end when he got in. I'm sure he wants to be playing more. I'm sure he wants at least Jordan Lyle's spot, if not Fletcher's spot or Martinez's spot. So that battle will continue. I think he's someone that can play if needed. Of course, it's a long season. There will be injuries, unfortunately, at this position. There always are. So at least you have A.J. Allen ready to go. And even Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, who got injured in the first scrimmage. I saw him go down with an ankle injury and looked like it was potentially a bad one. Thankfully, it wasn't. You saw him get a carry here. So basically, Miami's running back room, completely healthy. They all played, and that's what you want to see at this point of the year.
There was so much talk about the weapons around Cam Ward offensively this offseason. Elijah Arroyo coming back, needed him to take the next step, be healthy. Some of the weapons they brought in, then some guys who have been here and have taken that next step, it looks like. And all of that seems to be coming together nicely. Shannon Dawson, we talk so much about balance, what that means. He said last week in the press conference, balance is being able to spread the ball around and not really having to rely on one guy. And that's what we've seen early on here in the season. Restrepo going over 100 yards again. But just looking at the box score, Restrepo 4 receptions, Isaiah Horton 4, Sam Brown 4, Jacobe George 3, Chris Johnson with a couple, Ray Joseph with 2. So, and then Riley Williams, nice play downfield, Elijah Arroyo with his touchdown reception. So in terms of spreading the ball around, that's been the name of the game early for Cam Ward, which has to keep a defense on edge.
Yeah, let's start with the receivers before going to the tight ends here, because there's a lot to talk about with these pass catchers. A lot of guys caught the ball here. Restrepo, one of the best players in the country. What else are you going to say about him? They're fully locked in. Horton doing real well. I love his ability to get extra yards with physicality. You don't always see that with taller receivers. Sometimes they go down easy because their leverage and their center of gravity is so high, but he's someone that's got muscle to him. He's got toughness to him. He can get extra yards. So I love to see that from Isaiah Horton. Jacobe George has dealt with some minor injuries. I think he's still kind of getting his feet under him. You saw the big play, of course, against Florida. I think you'll see more from Jacobe George as the season goes on. Sam Brown is one that a lot of people are talking about. Clearly, first week, he should have scored on the play where he got stopped at the 1-yard line. Had another big play opportunity this week that he dropped. But here's what I'll say, and Pete, I know you agree because we talked about it online. I'll let you give your thoughts in a second. I'm not as worried about Sam Brown because he's doing other things. If you watch Sam Brown blocking, the play where Restrepo ran some dude over and hit him pretty good down there by the end zone, Sam Brown was out there blocking very aggressively. Of course, was the lead blocker on Mark Fletcher's touchdown run against Florida. I see effort from him, which tells me he's trying. And I heard good things about how he's doing, when the cameras aren't around. So I think with him, it's about confidence. And let's say Ball State, he gets a huge catch and run or he catches a bomb or something like that. Once you see that confidence go back into his body, he's new quarterback, new system. He got here late. He's had some nicks. So it's not like he's like, fully acclimated like Restrepo or Isaiah Horton, who've been doing it week in, week out for a while. I think when you see him get his confidence and his swag back, and he really, his body language kind of changes, you will see a whole side of Sam Brown. But for the meantime, if he was disengaging and being negative with the other stuff, that'd be one thing. But I see him trying, and that to me tells me that he's got more in the tank.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there with the confidence factor. Having worked with these high level athletes, that they put a lot of pressure on themselves in new situations, especially, right? When you talk about Sam Brown coming to Miami, the new guy in the room, there's already some established players, right, coming into a really good room. But number one, he has the talent, right? We've seen guys before at Miami who deep down we know they don't have the ability, or they're limited by what they have, and they're being put in a position that they're being asked to play a role that you probably wouldn't want them to play at Miami. He has all the ability in the world, big time NFL ability. And like you said, he's engaged. Everything we've heard from behind the scenes has been good with him. And he's been involved in the offense, and he's been in the mix, right? It's not like he's sitting on the sideline and hasn't been getting snaps, right? So he's getting opportunities, and he's going to continue to get those opportunities. And I think we'll see the best version of him as this season wears on. It's a long year, man. We get so caught up in every little thing from these games because we do these shows every day and we get into every little detail. But knowing how these guys work, just let him get some consistent weeks, piled up on each other here, and that big play will come for him. And that block he had in the first game against Florida on the perimeter there that helped spring Mark Fletcher on the touchdown. We've seen way worse from guys that we've expected a lot of things from at Miami. And I think he'll work himself out of this.
And I want to give another shout out here to Jacobe George, who we talked about briefly. We talked about it last week where Florida tried to bait him. He did not take the bait. I think Florida ended up getting the penalty, or there was no penalty call, but it could easily, last year would have been a penalty on George. This week, got a punch thrown at him. Didn't do anything, and it was a penalty on FAMU. So we talk a lot about player acquisition. Obviously, that's a huge part of what Cristobal is doing and a huge part of why Miami's doing so well. You see the Canes Connection hat on Peter, canesconnection.com/CIS. Link in the description is always the best NIL collective in the country. Join the cause. But we talk a lot about that. But there's a development factor here. And Jacobe George is a guy that Mario inherited from Manny. Very talented, but unproven and inconsistent and immature. First, the kid. Most important, because that's where development starts with the individual player, taking it on himself to be better than he was in the Pinstripe Bowl, to be better than he was last season in terms of maturity and having tangible growth in that area. You could turn on the tape and you could see it. It's not just, hey, this guy's got a better attitude around the building. It's you see the difference in behavior. I think that is huge. Credit number one goes to George, and then also the coaching staff, Kevin Beer, Mario Cristobal, and the culture and the leadership, everything around Jacobe George is positive right now. The playmaking, I'm not even a bit worried about. Jacobe George is going to catch some bombs this year with his great ability to track the ball and Cam Ward's ability to throw it. So to me, that was a small moment that really meant a lot. Getting into some other receivers here, Pete, before we move on to tight ends. JoJo Trader, a lot of people speculated he was gone for the year. I heard that reported elsewhere. He played, caught a pass, and he's not in perfect physical condition through no fault of his own, but there's a guy with a ton of talent. We saw him make a ton of plays starting in spring all the way through. He's a major part of the future of this team. Good to see him get his first catch. Nikar got his first catch, which is nice to see. Chance Robinson, a guy who's been injured pretty much since he got here later, and he wasn't here in spring because St. Thomas doesn't do that. So good to see him get involved. You saw his size. So good to see all those young receivers get some snaps.
I was looking for a tweet here, D. I couldn't find it. I think it was from our boy Ricky, the Prince. I think he said something like, man, Jacobe must be a hell of a trash talker because he's getting under someone's skin every game. So, I don't think we'll ever get him mic'd up, but I wish we could be, in on those conversations out there that he's involved in.
He's like a heel. When the ref turns around, he can poke the guy in the eye, and they won't. As long as he doesn't get caught, he'll win. He'll win a lot of games.
So tight end, just moving along here. D. Elijah Arroyo, of course, scored that touchdown. Really nice play by Cam Ward, kind of freezing the linebacker there in the middle of the field, and then Arroyo just coming across the face of the defender, and easy score, easy throw. But Riley Williams also made a nice play in this game. Your thoughts on that group as a whole?
The group looked good, looked similar to last week, but I want to focus on Riley Williams because he's someone that wasn't highlighted last week, although he did get some snaps against Florida, and he's going to get a lot of snaps this season. He is really developing into a guy that is going to me in the right direction. You're talking about somebody who has the size and has the speed, is a hands catcher, can run after the catch. You saw in his 2-point conversion. I know it's not a catch, but you saw the fact they put the ball in his hands, expecting to run. You saw a little bit of his speed on the pass he caught over the middle, jumping over defenders. His size is pretty unique for his speed. I mean, he came in, he was billed as a receiver. He was very productive as a receiver in Oregon. Again, you see the hands catching, the route running. He's a receiving tight end, but man, he really is a big kid. He's a legit 250 plus, legit 6'5", 6'6", and he's gotten much better as a blocker. He's coached hard there. Coach Woodle and all those guys do a great job. So put it all together. We talk about Arroyo being a complete tight end. Riley Williams is also a complete tight end. He might even be, he is a little bit bigger than Arroyo. So I like seeing him get involved. I think he's going to be a big part of this team. And it's unusual. Look, Miami's tight end you saw Njoku, got a little nicked up yesterday, but he was making catches. A lot of guys in the pros right now. Miami's tight end you, and the fact that we focus on Arroyo, don't lose sight of Riley Williams as an NFL type guy in that room.
Offensive line, got to see some new faces out there this week with Jalen Rivers out, and then obviously a little bit more rotation up front as Miami got ahead big in this one. And that's what we saw with pretty much all these groups. But with offensive line, we've heard so much about them being 8 to 9 to maybe 10 deep in terms of guys who they would trust in a game situation. So exciting to see a lot of these other guys out there from the O-line.
Yeah, 2 starters from the UF game out today. So out on Saturday. Ryan Rodriguez.
Yep.
Yeah, he had the ankle injury. I'm told it's not like a season ender or anything catastrophic, but he'll be out for a minute. You want to get him back because he really showed some nice things against Florida. And of course, Jalen Rivers, your star left tackle, out today. Cristobal said on the radio today, it's not that serious. I don't think anything's going to affect him down the road. They're just being cautious with him. But the silver lining is you got a lot of snaps for Matthew McCoy and Markel Bell. Matthew McCoy missed time in camp with injury, so he's still kind of getting his wind. There was a sack in the first quarter of Cam Ward. It was unclear who was responsible there, whether it was McCoy or Bell on the left side. There was some sort of miscommunication. Hearing Mirabal after the game talking to Don Bailey, it sounded like it might have been McCoy when they looked at the laptop, or on the iPad on the sideline, but it's hard to say. I can't stay here sitting here right now who's responsible for what. That was a communication thing. Those are the kind of things you work out as you get reps. But I thought Markel Bell, very raw, not perfect. Is he ready for ACC play? I don't know. But he's going to get closer to that by playing a game like this as a starter. I thought he showed some nice things, some nice movement. Of course, his size, man, is obvious on tape. So really good to see that. And then, of course, you had the young guys playing quite a bit. Frankie Tinalau played a ton of snaps at left guard. He's somebody that had a back injury as a freshman. I know, Pete, you know him from FRM. He had a back injury as a freshman, which basically cost him a whole season of development. He was raw to begin with, coming from Australia, playing the one season at Miami LaSalle, smaller school here in Miami. So he needs the development. This game, I think, was huge for him. He looked the part size-wise. He'll continue to get reps. I thought, Tommy Kinsler played left tackle. I could have seen a little more from him. He was up and down. He needs to tighten up. He has the athletic ability, but a game like this and some film and some teachable moments, I think will help him out. Samson Okunlola at right tackle. A lot of people thought he might get the start at left tackle with Rivers out, but it looks like they're sticking true to how it was in practice, where Bell was just a backup left tackle, Okunlola was the backup right tackle, and they kind of stayed there for the most part throughout the camp. So he did some nice things in the run game when he came in with the second unit. You saw Nino Francavilla at backup center. Will he be the first center if, God forbid, something happened to Carpenter? We'll see, but he did okay. So it's good overall day for the O-line. A couple moments, again, Kinsler getting beat for a sack of Poffenbarger, Ward getting sacked because of miscommunication between McCoy and Bell. But I thought overall the run game was strong. The pass game was strong. Look at the overall running stats here, which you expect against a team like FAMU. But Miami ran for 225 yards. So, hard to take too much fault in the run, in the run. There's some people wishing we ran a little better. But FAMU is not just a lay down opponent like a Savannah State. FAMU is a good HBCU team, the best HBCU team, a very good FCS team. So it's not like there's a lot of former FBS players on the team, transfers. So it's not like a total lay down. You got to play them. And I think 225 yards running the ball is a pretty good day.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that in terms of the O-line. I've said it before. I'm a big Markel Bell guy. I think with those tall guys, you worry about how flexible they are. Of course, their movement ability. You're out there on an island at tackle, and and in college D, a lot of these guys, these pass rushers, are not, they're trying to beat you with speed at that spot, right? A lot of these guys who are standing up. So that could be a problem for a guy with his size, right, in terms of his height. And there's a lot of good things to work with there, right? There's still work to be done, as you said, nowhere near a finished product. But I think he's a guy who, could be this year, hopefully not because of injury, but just because of how things go, that he ends up starting consistently, not because of injury, right? I just think this stuff with the offensive line is, you want it to be as cohesive as a unit and have as many starts as the same unit as possible. But I just think with the way that Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal prepare these guys and the way that competition is constantly going, we're going to see this still moving over the next few weeks here. Really, again, getting them ready for the meat of the schedule as we move forward.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Oregon's offensive line moving forward, because they have not looked as good as many people expected and how they looked in the last 5 years, between Cristobal and Mirabal, and then really the remainders of their offensive lines with Lanny's first couple of years. This has been a step back for the Oregon offensive line. They do have talent, Josh Connerly, guys like that. So we'll see where they go. But it's interesting to see the direction of that offensive line without Cristobal and Mirabal running the show. Something to watch, because they did not look good in their last game. Switching to gears.
Yeah,
it makes it think. Switching gears to the defensive side of the ball, defensive tackle. I thought overall this unit looked good. You want your defensive tackles to dominate against an FCS opponent with power and knockback, and I thought they did. It was good to see Marley Cook back out there, number 57. He was out for most of camp. Him and Deani Hill. Now that Florida's gone, we talk about guys that weren't there at camp. I was just sitting next to them watching them rehab, and I couldn't answer questions about him. Marley Cook was out for pretty much all of camp. Deani Hill was out for pretty much all of camp. Josh Horton out for pretty much all of camp. So seeing those guys back was huge. You saw Horton last week and Deani Hill last week, who we'll talk about in a second. But you certainly saw Marley Cook back this week. Good to see him back. I think you'll see him contribute more as the year goes on. One of the more experienced players on the team. Short, but very explosive and strong and experienced. The young guys, I mentioned Horton. Up and down for him. He looked really big, really fast, pushed the center into the quarterback on the pass that got tipped where the offensive line caught. He just looked like a beast running around, super quick, super big. Looks exactly what you want it to be. Had the bad roughing the passer, which was a total mental mistake. Kind of reminds me of Ahmad Moten, where the first couple of years you're kind of up and down, and then the third year, hopefully it clicks. We've seen Moten, at least through the first 2 games of this season, his third year, looked really, really good. Had a great game against Florida, played good against FAMU. So hopefully Horton is on a similar track, maybe even accelerated. But right now you're seeing some maturity stuff. You certainly see the talent and see somebody that can help us win the ACC and potentially compete in the playoff down the road. And then Justin Scott, 5-star player. You talked about him off repeat. This is a guy who, when you talk about 5 stars, how they should look, that sack that he got where he just pushed the guard out of the way and finished the play with athleticism, that's exactly what you want it to look like. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get heavier. He's going to continue to add weight, shift from that basketball body to more of a football body. He did not come here in spring, so he's somewhat behind from a time standpoint, but he's going to play a role this year. And I thought he looked awesome and looked everything of what you want a 5-star player to look like.
Yeah, I think, first point that you were just talking about with Horton and Ahmad Moten, I think with their potential emergence, again, just a couple games through here, but I think that kind of slows down a little bit of the concern, at least that I had, in terms of some bigger defensive tackles who can really, play against some teams down the line that Miami would face here as they, hopefully get to the playoff and play some teams that are really big in the trenches, right? I think they've got the guys for sure moving forward through this schedule here. But you talked about Justin Scott, and I said a few times, whether it was live shows or different things, and we would get asked about Justin Scott, is I don't want to rely on a guy like that now as a true freshman. Now, if he comes out there and blows it out of the water and is completely dominant every time he steps on the field, guess what? He's earned it. The learning curve isn't what it is for most lineman, right? Because he's a top 10 national guy, and boom, he's gone out there and earned himself more snaps. And I think it's going to continue to be the case here as competition picks up. But what a talent he is. I think my second practice report live, I said I saw him on the other side of the field going through, drills where the linemen were having to drop their hips, explode up, and move laterally. And I said, man, he moves differently at that size, right? As he continues to put this weight on, it's going to be scary.
Yeah, at that position, 5 stars are 5 stars for a reason. There's only so many guys with that size and athleticism walking the earth. You saw him playing basketball. You saw him playing running back. Those guys are rare, so it's exciting to see him get some snaps and get closer. Not even get closer because it's already happening, but continue to build on his role for this season, along with being a critical part of the future. Now shifting gears to our Beacon Adjusters Player of the Game. This is a fun one. Cam Ward was Beacon Adjusters Player of the Game last week. Could have been easily this one. We're switching up. First, want to talk about Beacon Adjusters. Was your home or business damaged by a recent storm? Did your insurance deny your claim or not pay enough to make repairs? If yes to either of these questions, you need to contact Beacon Adjusters Group, 954-249-9747. Beacon Adjusters Group experts can help you get your insurance claim settled and make sure you get fully paid. We don't get paid until you do. 954-249-9747. That's Beacon Adjusters. So, the Beacon Adjusters Player of the Game. Ready, Pete?
Ready.
Tyler Barron. Who else? 3 sacks. Look at the stats here. 3 sacks, 5 quarterback pressures, 41% win rate, 90.8 pass rush grade. The guy was completely unstoppable. Look at those numbers, man. The guy is a beast. You talked about him from the second we got him. We watched him play when we were recruiting him in spring. His name first came up. We watched a couple of his games, and we're like, man, this guy's as good as anybody in the portal, just size-wise, athleticism. Tennessee had him playing more of a run-stopping role, lining up directly in front of the tackle, lining up inside at times. Now you let him outside on the edge and let him work, and you see the results.
Yeah, and we've talked so much about his ability, just with his power, right? And I think it was interesting. You hear Mario Cristobal say after the game that he has as good of a feel as anyone he's ever coached, at that position, right? So you see him set up that inside move, right, for another sack that he had in the game. And as he continues to add some counter moves, and look, with a guy as talented as he is, pass rushing with that physical ability, it's not rocket science, right? So if he has that power move that we know he has in the bag, he adds a counter to it like that, he's going to be facing some good linemen this year. But I don't know how many of them are going to be able to play a full game of snaps against him without allowing a sack or two, right? I mean, I think he's on pace for a 12 to 14 sack type season if he stays healthy, knock on wood. But that's really how special I think this guy is. I compare him to Jermaine Johnson when he came on Miami's radar in the season that he had at Florida State. And I think that's been pretty on point so far.
No question about it. FAMU has a pretty good offensive line for FCS level. Of course, top 10 team defensive line against FCS offensive line. You expect Miami to win that battle. But FAMU is not the worst when you talk about FCS offensive line. They got some players. They got some guys from D1. They're right closer to lower level G5 than just straight FCS. And you saw what happened with Tyler Barron. He's going to be tough for anybody to deal with. SEC couldn't handle him. FCS couldn't handle him. We'll see what the MAC can do with him. I doubt they can do much. And then at ACC, I saw Tyler Barron against Virginia last year, and he looked just like he did against FAMU. So I think he's going to be too much for the competition this season in general. And then when you put Ruben Bain on the other side, and you can't double team Tyler Barron, now you're really cooking. You hope both of those guys stay healthy so we can see kind of like, remember we wanted to see Roche and Rousseau, who by the way, Rousseau and Phillips both had great games on Sunday. Rousseau with 3 sacks, Phillips back from the Achilles with a key sack for the Dolphins. We never had to see all those guys together. It would be so nice to see Barron Bain, Alston, Messidor in and out all together against a key opponent like an FSU. That'd be fun to watch. Obviously, Bain should be back. He's not gone forever, but that'd be really great to see those guys lined up.
And you mentioned a Roche, and he was a really solid player, but I think an Alston has more ability than a Roche. At least has more twitch, has more burst, and we've seen his production already through a couple games. He had a sack in this one as well. Just his bend, right? So you've got a mix of guys who can get after the quarterback in that group.
No question. Let's have some young guys too at the end before we move off that position. I thought Armando Blunt, number 18, we talked about him really coming on in practice. I mentioned it in the bank, which you can see on CanesInSight.com, where I give you all the best inside info I can give. Armando Blunt has really flashed in practice. He's another guy like Horton that was injured basically through spring and camp, but then has been practicing lately and looking like every bit of a 5-star player. Is someone who was winning state championships in the throwing events as a freshman in high school. I think he ran 4.8 on the lasers. He's valedictorian of his class. He just checks so many boxes. And of course, he was very productive for Miami Central and Dillard when he was there. So a lot of boxes checked. He's playing DN now as a big DN. He can eventually move inside to D tackle. He's only 17. He just turned 17. He'll be that the whole season. So ton of upside. He's already playing. He's already playing well. He's going to be in this rotation. I can say confidently in terms of the ACC play, this guy's going to play a role with his power and speed. You saw some of that at the end. He's able to get around guys and close a distance and was active. Another guy, Cole McConaughey, I had predicted he'd get a sack this game. He didn't, but he did have a power rush that led to Barron's second sack where they both kind of met at the quarterback. Also helped force that INT to Pruitt with a very good rush, shed his guy and was able to close the distance on the quarterback, rush the throw, ended up throwing it right to Cam Pruitt. So I think those guys all showed something. You saw Pickett show some athleticism and coverage. Marquise Lightfoot had a nice pressure when he got in there. He also played kickoff. And Elias Rudolph, the last interception by Darius Hayes, Elias Rudolph was able to beat his man inside and get in there. So a lot of speed and talent at that position. I think Blunt and McConaughey are bigger. I know they're bigger, so I think that's going to get them on the field earlier than maybe the skinnier guys. But with Rudolph, Lightfoot, Pickett, a lot of athleticism, natural pass rush. It's going to be who gains weight first in that crew. But Miami thinks they hit a home run on the D-line, and I think you saw it with some of these young players against FAMU.
Another position with a lot of speed and athleticism, linebacker, D. I mean, for years, it's been painful at times to see some of the sideline to sideline or ability or lack thereof, right? The lack of just who could run, right? And not only run, but the consistent physicality that you're looking for, and a position here where there's a lot of young guys that Derek Nicholson has brought in here that we're excited to see develop.
Yeah, like to see the young talent again. This has been a transformed position from when Manny left. Manny struggled recruiting linebackers since that Shaq Quarterman picnic class, which he really inherited from Golden. So Manny never recruited linebackers well here. That hurt us. Mario suffered with that the first couple of years. Now you're starting to see Mario's recruiting a linebacker, and it just looks different. Mao is a stud. We could talk about him all day. Wesley Bastanes with that interception set the tone. He's someone who now he's up to 230 pounds. He's a whole new player. We've talked about him all spring as a breakout candidate. Alderman, you know what you're going to get there. Chase Smith getting a lot more snaps with the defense in key situations. He's shown he's not just a special teams player. He's starting to look like the player we thought he might be as a freshman before the knee injury. So you're seeing him back, which is super encouraging. But focusing on the young guys, Popo Aguirre, somebody who we talked about a lot and hasn't gotten going yet. A lot of snaps on Saturday, very active, made a lot of plays. Also was very good on special teams. He's one of the special teams player of the week. Cam Pruitt, also special teams player of the week, had a great INT, playing zone, eyes on the quarterback. You saw the safety instincts take over a little bit. He looked like a DB on that pick. And then another pick for Darius Hayes, who, Pete, you were there for his first practice. This is somebody who at the Under Armour week and then early on in camp or early on in spring when he got here, some people were saying this guy DE, I don't know if he moves well enough. But once the pads came on, we've been saying it consistently, and it gets louder and louder the more he plays. When the pads came on, and Darius Hayes showed why he was such a highly recruited player, had a huge hit on special teams, knocked someone out. He was another great special teams player. I think him, Aguirre, and Pruitt were both highlighted, or all highlighted for their work on special teams. But he's somebody who just physical, crushed a guy on that kickoff. set the tone there, and then had the pick. I thought he could have tried to return it, but he went out of bounds. I guess he knows his limitations. But a really nice performance, I thought, by the backup linebackers.
Yeah, I'm excited to see those guys develop. And look, it's going to be interesting to see how many, because of course these guys can play up to 4 games right before they kind of blow their red shirt. So we'll see how many of these guys, how many more games they can play in. But if they play 4 games and we stop there, then that's probably a good sign, because that means Miami was up in a lot of games. But I think a bunch of these guys are going to play throughout the season, and they won't redshirt. If you're ready to be an impact guy and play your role, I don't think Mario is worried about them burning a red shirt if they're going to be contributors.
Yeah, especially with the special teams play. So switching to the safety position, I'll be fast on this one. I don't think there's that much to talk about. They didn't get to that level very often, but Jaden Harris continues to look active and fast and aggressive. We both had him as a breakout candidate all offseason, and I think he's showing that he's an NFL type of talent with his speed and physicality. I love everything I see from Jaden Harris. And then Zaquan Patterson had a very nice tackle with the ones, showed his length and closing speed. He's someone I think is going to get more and more playing time as the season goes on. So that to me is safety. Cornerback, Jadis Richard, I think, needs to really hone in on his tackling. He's missing too many tackles for a guy his size. There was a coverage bust to Quan Lee. I don't know if that was Richard or Frederic or who that was, but that needs to get cleaned up. Otherwise, I thought the cornerbacks played well. You saw Miles Muyon get in there, get a tackle with the second team, and Robert Stafford had a couple pass breakups and looked pretty athletic. But I thought, cornerbacks not tested a ton in a game like this because the defensive line was so dominant. But Jadis Richard, I think he's got to tackle better because he's the biggest guy in the room with Damari Brown out for a little bit. He's got to tackle and show that he's not a liability there. Because if he's a liability as a tackler, you might as well play a Robert Stafford or a Frederic, who's, of course, the starting cornerback right now, that's younger, maybe skinnier, but probably has more athletic ability and speed than a Richard. Richard's got to be physical.
And then how about Abram Murray, kicker, part of Miami's last recruiting class, and a lot of people had him rated very highly in terms of the specialists from last year's class, and nails a really nice field goal near the end of this game. D, I mean, it's nice to look the Borregales brothers. We unfortunately there's not going to be a third one coming in here, so good to see him get in there, Abram Murray, and make an impact.
Yeah, you've seen teams like Clemson and Alabama really struggle at the kicker positions in seasons. You had Clemson pulling a guy off an office job last year. So you don't want that problem ever at the University of Miami. Miami spends a scholarship on a kicker when they already have a kicker. So when that happens, of course, Murray's going to redshirt, assuming that Borregales can stay healthy. But you want to see the scholarship kicker look like a scholarship kicker. And I think Murray did look like that when the ball left his boot. And that's what you want to see. Again, kickers will be judged over consistency over time. But just in terms of first impression, leg, the ball jumping off his foot, I think Murray passed that test, and you would say, okay, that looks like what a scholarship kicker is supposed to look like.
Hit a nice right to left draw. All my golfers know what I'm talking about, but it had some heat behind it. It would have been good from at least 10, 15 more, D.
Yeah, no, again, exactly what you want to see. There's also a backup kicker, Roca, who I heard is pretty good as well. The third kicker is a walk-on, but I heard he can kick for some schools at the FBS level. So Miami's in good shape at that kicker position. You got to see how it goes over time. We've been spoiled with the Borregales brothers, but when Miami has a good kicker, this is a complete team, and it's looking like a complete team right now. And speaking of the team, I want to talk about our friends at the Miami Hurricane team store. We got a new segment, which are debuting. For those of you who are not on the CanesInSight.com message boards, we got 7 million plus posts and counting. 750,000 people on the board last year, over 19,000 registered with names and avies and personalities and characters. It is just the funnest place to discuss Canes football, especially after a win. People are going crazy. But I wanted to focus on the Miami Hurricane Team Store post of the day, which before we get to the post, we'll talk about the sponsor, Miami Hurricane Team Store. They had a great event on Sunday, autograph session. You looked at some of the players that were there. There you see Damian Martinez, Mish Powell. You see the line there. It was just a lot of fun. 2:30 to 3:30. Look at this kid. He'll always remember that. You got autograph balls. There's Mish Powell. Just a great opportunity to meet some great Canes Connection athletes at the team store right in front of Miami of the University of Miami. There's Damian Martinez. Right in front of the University of Miami, next to the Thesis Hotel. This is Harry Rothwell. If you know anything about Miami Hurricanes memorabilia, this guy's been around since the beginning, running the store, officially affiliated with the team, so they got the exclusive gear. And then because of that affiliation with people like Canes Connection, you get events like this autograph signing. It was last Sunday. Great event. You saw how fun it was. We will keep you posted on the next one. I heard there's some stuff cooking. We will let you know first on this show, but you're going to want to stay tuned and attend that event because someone made a post on the Miami on the CanesInSight message boards about how fun it was, and a lifelong memory, especially for the little ones. So with all that, the Miami Hurricane team store post of the day had to go with somebody who's an icon on the boards. That's Memnon. This guy knows every single player and coach in college football. He's like an encyclopedia with some of this stuff. And one thing he's been harping on for years, we like to get in-depth football discussion on the Miami Hurricane, on CanesInSight, on the Miami Hurricanes, on recruiting. You're not going to get more in-depth discussion than CanesInSight and, more depth than you get on Twitter. And one thing he's been harping on is Texas quarterbacks. So his post of the day was about Texas quarterbacks. He thinks he's been saying for a while, Miami needs Texas quarterbacks. Obviously, Cam Ward is from Texas, close to the Houston area. And as Memnon pointed out, 32 quarterbacks from Texas have either started or played significant snaps in college football right now. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Texas Tech, Baron Morton, pretty good player. Hayes King, we saw him at Georgia Tech. I mean, you can go down the list. Taylor Green at Arkansas as a talented guy. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, is as good as it gets to me. I think he might end up being the best quarterback down here. Quinn Ewers, DJ Lack, you name it. Seth Hannigan, who hopefully will beat the Florida State Seminoles next week. It is a golden era of Texas quarterbacks in the pros and in college. And these are the kind of discussions you get on CanesInSight when you sign up. Stuff that you're not going to see on Twitter because it doesn't have the depth of what you get on a forum. So if you're not on the forums, sign up. 7 million posts and counting. There's you see the front page, get all the latest stories from the Young Lion, Tritton Breeze, and myself. But then you go click on the threads and you could be on there all day, learning, arguing, getting your opinion out there, or just celebrating a win or a great commitment with GIFs. Of course, recruiting. Nothing beats recruiting on the Miami Hurricane recruiting message board there on CanesInSight. Just a lot of fun. So that's our Miami Hurricane post of the day, and we'll keep it coming every day. Get you guys discussing the latest on the team and college football in general.
So Ball State this weekend.
Yeah, Ball State. No, I was trying to figure out what you got going on this weekend. Wait, by the way, when do you get back? You get back on Saturday, right?
Saturday, yeah. I actually land Saturday at 4 p.m. So we got a 3:30 game right against Ball State. So yeah, I'll have some jet lag, I'm sure, coming over from Europe, but I'm gonna get right to a television to watch that one as soon as I land. So
and maybe we'll do a post show.
No delay, everything's smooth. Yeah,
we'll do a post show at night. If you're asleep, you could just put a picture of yourself and we'll pretend you're awake and you'll be napping.
I'll be up. I'll be up for that one for sure.
What do you got going on in Florence today? The Duomo behind you. What do you got cooking?
The Duomo. It looks like the Golden Dome. But anyways, it's just chilling out the rest of the trip, man. Gonna be here in Tuscany, so here for the next week. But had a bunch of stuff going on in Rome for the wedding, so was just running around, excited to enjoy this week. But yeah, like I said at the start of the show, hopefully I can be on as many of these as I can this week, D.
Yeah, it shows your commitment to Cane Nation. That's why he's the people's champ, Peter Ariz. Appreciate everybody joining us. CanesInSight.com, 7 million posts and counting. Don't forget to sign up or just lurk. It is the funnest place to be during the season and the off season, and it's addicting as can be. But a good win, and now we're on to Ball State. So with all that, go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you, and nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody do it like